Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever stared at a dense official document, okay, maybe a government bulletin, a complex legal filing, and wished someone could just cut through all the jargon and tell you simply what really matters? What are the key takeaways? Well, if you've ever felt that, you are in luck today because that's exactly what we're doing for you in this deep dive. Our focus today is a truly critical one for many people, the September 2025 Visa Bulletin.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because this isn't just some dry list of dates and numbers. This bulletin is truly a compass for thousands of hopeful immigrants, pointing them towards their next step, or sometimes, well, unfortunately, indicating a long wait still ahead. It really is a precise snapshot of visa availability as we approach the very end of the fiscal year. And for anyone navigating the immigration process, understanding it is absolutely essential.
Absolutely. And our mission today is basically to distill this complex document into clear, actionable insights for you. We'll cut through the numbers and the specific country impacts from this September 2025 Visa Bulletin, making it understandable. We want to provide you with a real shortcut to being well-informed about these vital immigration updates. Think of it as your roadmap. So before we jump into the specific dates and categories, maybe we should start with the language. This bulletin uses a couple of core terms that are really foundational to understanding where you stand. We're talking about final action dates and dates for filing applications. For someone just trying to make sense of their journey, what's the fundamental difference between these two?
That's the perfect place to start, yeah. Think of it this way. The final action dates are essentially your green light. This is the date when visas can actually be issued or when an adjustment of status application can finally be approved. Your priority date, the date your petition was first filed, it has to be earlier than this listed date for your number to be authorized. It's kind of the finish line, or at least the final sprint towards it.
Okay, so that's the final approval stage. What about the dates for filing?
Right, so dates for filing applications is more like getting your pre-flight check done. It's an earlier step. This is the date when you should typically be notified to assemble and submit all your required documentation to the Department of State's National Visa Center, the NVC. It basically allows you to get your paperwork officially in the queue, get everything ready, even if your visa isn't immediately available for final issuance yet. And a really key point here, always check the USCIS website, that's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, because they're the ones who will tell you which chart to use for filing your adjustment of status application within the U.S. Sometimes they direct applicants to use this earlier dates for filing chart if there's enough visa availability projected.
Got it. So two different timelines to watch. But what about those single letters we sometimes see, like C and U? What do those mean when you're scanning these tables?
Ah, yes, those are pretty straightforward indicators, thankfully. When you see a C, that just means current. This is great news because it means numbers are authorized for all qualified applicants in that category, doesn't matter what their priority date is. It's like having an open door.
Okay, C is good. What about U?
On the other hand, U stands for unauthorized. This means that right now, no visa numbers are authorized for issuance in that specific category or for that particular country. And importantly, no further requests for numbers will be honored by the State Department for that period. It's effectively a temporary hold or stop.
Right. So understanding whether your case is looking at a final action date, a date for filing, or if it's maybe current or even unauthorized is really the first big step in knowing where you stand in this whole process.
Exactly. And stepping back for just a moment, it also helps to understand the sheer scale of the system, the overall limits. For the fiscal year 2025, there are numerical limits set by law. The worldwide limit for family-sponsored preference immigrants is set at 226,000. For employment-based preferences, it's a bit lower, 150,037 for FY 2025. And on top of those worldwide totals, there are per-country limits. Generally, these are set at 7% of the combined family and employment totals. For FY 2025, with some carryover provisions factored in, that means no single country can typically get more than 26,862 visas across these preference categories.
Well, right.
Yeah, and there's also a smaller dependent area limit, around 7,675.
So here's where it gets really impactful, I imagine. With those overall limits, it means not everyone can move forward at the same pace, right? The bulletin highlights specific areas that are oversubscribed. Now, this term sounds serious. What does it actually mean for applicants? And which countries are consistently seeing such high demand that these special pro-rating provisions kick in?
You're right. Oversubscribed means exactly what it sounds like. The demand for visas from a particular country in certain categories significantly exceeds its per-country limit for the year. When this happens, visa issuance has to be prorated, basically spread out over time, which leads to backlogs. For September 2025, the Bulletin clearly identifies the oversubscribed chargeability areas. These are the places where you'll consistently see significant backlogs. They are China mainland, born, India, Mexico, and the Philippines.
Okay, those four.
Yes. These countries often face the longest waits simply due to that overwhelming demand relative to the per-country cap.
Okay, let's truly unpack the family-sponsored preferences now. These categories are all about family reunification, right? Ranging from F1 for unmarried sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, all the way down to F4 for brothers and sisters of adult U.S. citizens. Looking at the final action dates for September 2025, what are the key trends or standout dates we should be aware of?
Right. Let's look at F1 first. That's unmarried sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. The date for most of the world they call all chargeability areas, except those listed, is July 15th, 2016.
Okay, 2016.
But look at the massive disparity for F1 applicants from Mexico. That date is way back, April 22, 2005.
Wow, 2005.
Yeah, and for the Philippines, it's July 15th, 2012. This isn't just a number. It really shows the decades-long wait times driven by that high demand from certain countries.
That's stark. What about F2A? Spouses and children of permanent residents.
Okay, F2A. The date listed for all chargeability areas is September 1st, 2022. Now, there's a bit of a unique twist for F2A in this bulletin. It basically creates two pathways depending on your priority date. If your date is early enough before February 1st, 2022, you're largely exempt from the per-country limit. If your date is between February 1st, 2022 and September 1st, 2022, you are subject to the limit except for Mexico. Critically, all F2A numbers for Mexican applicants are exempt from the per-country limit for this period. It offers a different path for them within F2A.
That's interesting. Okay, moving on to F2B.
F2B, that's unmarried sons and daughters 21 or older of permanent residents. The date for all chargeability areas is October 15th, 2016. And again, you see much earlier dates for Mexico, April 1st, 2007, and the Philippines, May 1st, 2012. Similar pattern.
And F3, married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens.
For F3, all chargeability areas is August 1st, 2011. Here, India shows a very early date, February 1st, 2001.
2001.
Yes. And the Philippines is May 1st, 2004. We're talking about waits potentially exceeding 2 decades for some individuals in this category from these countries.
Incredible. And finally, F4, brothers and sisters.
F4, brothers and sisters of adult U.S. citizens. All chargeability areas shows January 1st, 2008. India stands at November 6, 2006. And the Philippines actually has 2 dates listed here, January 6, 2006 and March 22, 2005. The general trend here is really clear. For many family categories, especially F3 and F4, applicants from India, Mexico, and the Philippines consistently face the longest waits, often measured in well over a decade compared to other regions.
Okay, so that's when final action can be taken, the actual visa issuance or green card approval. But for those just looking to get their documentation in order, the dates for filing chart provides that earlier window, right? What does that generally look like for these family-sponsored visas?
Yes, exactly. And what's consistent here is that these dates for filing are generally more advanced, sometimes significantly more advanced, than the final action dates. This is really helpful because it allows applicants, especially those from the oversubscribed countries like China, India, Mexico, and the Philippines, to prepare and submit their documents earlier. It gets their administrative process moving with the NVC, even if that final visa issuance is still some time away. For instance, you mentioned F2A earlier. Its filing date is June 1, 2025 for all chargeability areas, including Mexico. That's much further ahead than the final action date, showing a potentially shorter wait just to submit the paperwork.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears then to the employment-based side. This covers quite a range, from priority workers in EB1 down to employment creation or investor visas in EV5. What's the landscape looking like here for September 2025? Any stark contrast we should note on the final action dates?
For employment-based preferences, the final action dates, they reveal some similar patterns regarding certain countries, particularly India and China. For the first preference, EB1 or priority workers, most areas are marked C current, so immediate availability for many.
That's good.
However, China mainland born has a date of November 15th, 2022, and India is February 15th, 2022. So even at the highest preference level, these two countries still face a wait, while most others have that open door.
Okay, what about EB2? Advanced degrees, exceptional ability.
Right, EB2. For all chargeability areas, the date is September 1st, 2023, but look at the difference for China, December 15, 2020, and for India, it's even further back, January 1st, 2013.
13.
Yeah. Imagine being, say, an engineer or scientist from India with an approved petition, seeing that 2013 date. That's over a decade of waiting just for the final step. It really illustrates the scale of the backlog.
Definitely. How about EB3? Skilled workers, professionals, and the other workers category.
Okay, EB3. For skilled workers and professionals, all chargeability areas is April 1st, 2023. China is at December 1st, 2020, and India is May 22, 2013, same date as India's EB2 backlog here. Now, within the third preference, there's the other workers subcategory. That generally requires less skilled labor. The date there is July 8, 2021 for most areas, but for China, it's May 1, 2017, and for India, again, May 22, 2013. And it's worth noting, historically, this other workers category has a very small annual limit, only about 5,000 worldwide after some deductions, which significantly slows its progress compared to the rest of EB3.
Okay, and then EB4, special immigrants, religious workers.
Now, here's a really crucial point for applicants in these categories. For fourth preference, EB4, which includes certain special immigrants, and also for certain religious workers, the SR category, the Bulletin explicitly states U, meaning unauthorized, for all chargeability areas for September 2025.
Unauthorized across the board.
Yes. That means no numbers are currently authorized for issuance in these specific categories as the fiscal year ends.
All right, and finally, EB5, the employment creation or investor category.
Right, EB5. This one has become a bit more complex with the introduction of set-aside categories.
Right.
For the unreserved category, kind of the traditional EB5, most areas are current. But again, China has a date of December 8, 2015, and India is November 15, 2019. So significant backlogs exist there for the standard investment visa.
But there are those set-asides now.
Exactly, and this is a key insight from the Bulletin. The set-aside categories investments in rural areas, high unemployment areas, and infrastructure projects. All three of these are listed as C current for all chargeability areas, including China and India. So this indicates a wide open pathway, at least for now, for those immigrant investors who choose projects in these specific targeted sectors. No backlog currently.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, so just like with the family visas, there's also a separate dates for filing chart for employment-based applications. How do those dates compare? Do they offer that same earlier window?
Yes, the pattern holds true here as well. The dates for filing employment-based visa applications are generally more advanced than the final action dates. This again provides that earlier opportunity for applicants to get their documentation submitted and reviewed by the NVC or USCIS. And interestingly, even for the fourth preference and certain religious workers, which we just noted are unauthorized for final action, the filing date is listed as February 1st, 2021 for all areas.
Oh, okay.
So even if the final visa isn't being issued right now, the administrative process, like submitting the application, can often begin based on this earlier date.
Got it. Okay, let's move beyond the family and employment categories for a moment. The Bulletin also covers the Diversity Immigrant Visa Program, the DV lottery. This is often seen as maybe a lifeline for people from countries with historically lower rates of immigration to the U.S. What's the story for DV 2025, especially now as we approach the end of the fiscal year in September?
The Diversity Immigrant, or DV program, is indeed unique. It's specifically designed to broaden the diversity of immigrants coming to the U.S. It typically allocates up to 55,000 visas annually through a random lottery selection process. However, it's important to note, for DV 2025, that annual limit has been slightly reduced to 52,056. This is due to certain legislative provisions, like NACRA and the NDAA. These visas are divided among 6 geographic regions, and there's a strict cap that no single country can receive more than 7% of the total available DV visas in any given year.
Okay, so how do the numbers look for September 2025? What are the cutoffs?
Right. These are the rank number cutoffs. For September 2025, meaning for those selected in the DV 2025 lottery, the cutoff numbers vary quite a bit by region. For Africa, the general cutoff is 58,500, but there are exceptions. Algeria is lower at 54,500, Egypt is 52,000, and Morocco is 40,500. For Asia, the cutoff is 14,500, with Iran capped at 11,000 and Nepal at 14,450. Europe's general cutoff is 23,000, but Russia is slightly lower at 22,950, and Uzbekistan is significantly lower at 15,000.
Okay.
North America, specifically for the Bahamas, remains current. Oceania has a cutoff of 1,775, and South America and the Caribbean is at 2,825.
Absolutely. This is perhaps the most critical takeaway for anyone selected in the DV 2025 lottery. Your entitlement to DV status lasts only through the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30, 2025.
That specific date DV visas absolutely cannot be issued to DV 2025 applicants after September 30th, 2025, period. Furthermore, it's possible that the available numbers for a region could be exhausted even before September 30th. So it's a hard deadline with no exceptions. If you haven't completed the process and received your visa by then, that opportunity is unfortunately gone.
Wow, that's incredibly time sensitive.
It really is. And just as a quick look ahead, the Bulletin also gives the initial rank cutoffs for the next lottery, DV 2026, which begins processing in October 2025. Those numbers will start much lower, as expected at the beginning of a new fiscal year. So what this all means, really, if we try to connect the dots and think about the broader implications. These dates and numbers we've been discussing in the September Bulletin are just absolutely critical for individuals waiting for their visa or for their adjustment of status to be approved. They literally tell you precisely when you might expect movement on your case, or maybe when you need to be ready to submit your documentation. It's your official guidance system.
And the Bulletin also gives us a bit of a peek into what might be coming right at the end of the fiscal year, especially on the employment side. It specifically notes this steady increase in demand for employment-based visas. So, looking right at the end of FY 2025, what's the visa office expecting?
Yes, they provide a forecast. The visa office states they expect to reach the FY 2025 annual limits in most employment-based preference categories sometime during August and September. Now, this is really crucial because it means some categories could suddenly become unavailable or unauthorized potentially right away if their specific annual limit is hit before September 30th.
So things could stop abruptly.
Exactly. If that happens, no more visas can be issued in those categories until the start of the next fiscal year, which is October 1st, when the new annual limits become available. It's something to watch closely as the fiscal year wraps up.
Good to know. Okay, and finally, the Bulletin mentions one more important update. This one is for U.S. government employee special immigrant visas, the SIVs. It seems related to a recent legislative change, the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, for fiscal year 2024. What should applicants in this specific category be aware of?
Right. The essence here is that a specific section of the NDAA for fiscal year 2024, which was enacted back in December 2023, might affect certain current and former employees of the U.S. government working abroad and potentially their eligible family members applying for these SIVs or adjustment of status. The Bulletin does note this particular provision does not affect certain Iraqi and Afghan SIV applicants under different programs, SQSI. But for those potentially impacted U.S. government employee SIV applicants, the best advice given is really to directly contact the consular section where they file their application, their Form DS 1884. They need to get specific information from the consulate on how that new law might impact their individual case.
Okay, direct contact is key there. So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener? It means, hopefully, you now have a far clearer understanding of this September 2025 Visa Bulletin. We've tried to translate those often complex tables and notes into, well, actionable insights about final action dates, filing timelines, and those specific country impacts across family, employment, and diversity visas. It's definitely a dense document, but maybe now you have a better key to unlock its meaning for your situation.
And perhaps this raises an important question for everyone who's navigating this process or even just watching it unfold. How might these specific numerical realities, these backlogs and cutoffs, influence your own long-term planning or maybe your perspective? And what does this snapshot, month after month, year after year, really tell us about the continuous, intense global demand for immigration opportunities to the U.S.? It's a constant theme.
That's a great point to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the September 2025 Visa Bulletin. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and we'll keep unpacking complex topics for you.